Hello, my name is Kay Meyer and welcome to my YouTube channel. I read a lot of different genres, but my favorite, hands down, has to be horror for movies and books. So I made a challenge for myself for this spooky month of October to read and watch a horror book and a horror movie a week. And y'all, I found some really good ones. So if you like spooky things, I would definitely recommend all of these books and movies. This is going to be mostly spoiler-free reviews, but I will warn you if we get to that point where I'm going to drop some knowledge. I just finished reading What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. Possibly one of my favorite thrillers. Oh, my bookmark just fell out. Possibly one of my favorite thrillers ever. Which is a big deal, because I think they are very predictable a lot of the time. This one is by an author I had read before, but the catch is I have read her kids' books, and this was an adult thriller, so that was very different. She's really good at writing a friend group, whether it was the adults or kids. And this was one of those books where I had to stop and think about multiple times, wait, who do I think is, gonna be the bad guy? And I won't spoil anything, because I think, honestly, if you decide to pick up this book, you should just go for the ride. And I knew it had to be good, because I got this used, and it has all the lines on lines on the spine, which is always a good indicator, at least I think so, that it's gonna be a good book, because that many people have been like, I gotta read, I gotta keep going. But yeah, I was also immediately drawn in by what it says on the cover. They were 11 when they sent a killer to prison. They were heroes, but they were liars. Woo! So it follows the kids as adults, and the main character is a girl who was attacked by a serial killer, and she survived. And throughout the process of the book, she realizes maybe that's not what happened. And maybe she doesn't know anything about her past at all. So, this was a super fun way to start my, creepy weekly in October. I am also planning to watch The Monkey, so that is going to be my movie for this week. So, I'll catch you up after I watch that. I just realized I forgot to update you on how The Monkey went. So, I was really excited to hear about this movie coming out. I actually learned about it from seeing the preview on TikTok, and there's a part where a lady jumps into a pool, and if you've seen the preview, you kind of know what happens, but anyway, that was the gotcha moment for me, that I was like, I have to see this movie. And then I found out that it's based off of a short story written by Stephen King, also called The Monkey, and I like that guy. But then it was going to be directed by Osgood Perkins, and I really like that director. I think his movie I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is one of my top favorite horror movies ever. It's also super slow, atmospheric, very quiet horror, and it's a good one if you are just wanting to see something a little bit scary, but not super duper jump scare, gonna terrify you kind of thing. I'm still confused by his movie Longlegs. I've only seen it once. I need to rewatch that, I think, to really get it, but that was kind of weird. But anyway, The Monkey. And it was also going to be produced by James Wan of Conjuring fame, so I like those movies too. But The Monkey, I would say, kind of falls more into comedy horror, horror comedy, because yeah, there's a lot of people that die, but it's not that serious, and they kind of die in funny ways. I was laughing while I kept laughing while I was watching this movie. I think the beginning part with the twins as little kids maybe went on for a little bit too long, but I think Theo James really made this movie when he's playing the kid as an adult. At first it's kind of oh, each one of these deaths has a very specific meaning to the kids, the main characters, Hal and Bill, But as it goes on, just more and more people are unalived, and it gets to the point where it's ridiculous. And I think they hit the right tone for this movie of being like, yeah, if you took this too seriously about a monkey that is one of those like wind-up toys with an instrument, usually the cymbals, they had them be drums in this movie. The premise is ridiculous that one of those would be murdering people. So I think they hit the right tone there with trying to make it kind of funny. Some of the effects were good, and there were other times where I was like, oh, yeah. I don't know about that. But then as I kept watching, I was like, oh, they saved their budget for this one. Got it, makes sense. And even though, like, yeah, there was a lot of blood, I wouldn't say it was super gory. I am not, like, a big fan of horror movies that are really gory, that just kind of don't have a plot, really, and the plot is the gore. This definitely had a plot. It was a silly plot, but we didn't linger too long on any of the death scenes, so it wasn't too, like, even the parts that were pretty gross, they weren't, I would say, that gratuitous or anything. Like, yeah, this is definitely rated R, but I have seen way worse grossness-wise. Like, I think this would be like a medium on that scale. Like, there were some gross ones, and there were some that were like, yeah, that's typical of horror, you know. But anyway, I definitely would watch it again. I think this one would be a fun movie to watch with other people, just because it's funny. It's one of those that I think, now that I know what happens, it would get more funny watching it, and because I know what to expect and like who's gonna die and what the deaths are. I just finished reading The Good House by Tananarive. I really liked the style. It was very immersive, like getting to know the family and the different characters in this book, and even generationally wise. That said, I was waiting and waiting and waiting for like the creepy part, you know, since it is a horror book and I knew it was going to be like a haunted house kind of thing. It ended up being a little more complex than that. The main character, Angela, her grandmother practiced voodoo, and the house and land was cursed because of something she did that the Loas and like the voodoo gods that she worshipped, she did something against them, and it kind of opened the way for something evil to come in and try to take over. Something I thought was really interesting about this book was the ending. Without spoiling it, I will say, has a very unique ending that I have not seen in a lot of horror things. I really did like the ending. I was surprised by what happened, and I'll just say it ended up a lot happier than I expected, because I really thought, the way things were going, I really thought it wasn't going to be good, but I really liked how it ended. But yeah, this was definitely a solid read. Yeah, so the dog that I thought, okay. So there was a character, she has a dog, the dog disappeared, I thought the dog didn't make it, the dog does make it, so, you know, that's good. But then the owner doesn't make it. But the dog just teleported cross country, and along with this dude's van, his VW van that has 2 like popped tires and can't run at all, just appeared in front of his apartment. And the guy sees these and then is just like fully possessed, and he is possessed and drives cross country in the van up to Washington, up to Canada, because that's where the dog's owner is. he unalives the owner, and then is probably going on his way back to Washington where his ex-wife is, and he's probably going to try to unalive his ex-wife.
I forgot to add that this is a small part of the book. Like, this is just one of the many wild things that happen.
But I was just reading that at work, and I was like, this possessed guy is going on a cross-country road trip with a dog that's not his. And my coworker was like, what are you doing? What book are you reading? And I'm like, I don't know. I saw it recommended. It sounded good. I do really like it. It is kind of weird. But it's mostly just, like, very slow, atmospheric, learning more about the people in this town and how they're all connected to each other. And I do really like it. But, yeah, like I said, it's going a little slow, but it's picking up. And I'm just like, what is going on? I need to update you about 47 Meters Down, the sequel, Uncaged. So I like shark movies. I think they're really fun and just kind of different for horror movies anyway. I enjoyed the first one, just 47 Meters Down, when I watched it a few years ago. I was kind of disappointed by the ending. It has a typical horror movie ending, so I won't spoil it, but if you've seen it, let me know if you like it or if you were kind of bummed out. So then I saw there was a sequel, so I was like, well, I gotta watch that. And I will say I was pleasantly surprised. I was really excited because the premise sounded super cool. These two girls, again, just like the first one, two girls get trapped, and this time, instead of being stuck in a shark cage at the bottom of the ocean, they get trapped in some underwater labyrinth maze system that they went exploring in because there was like some ancient cool temple down there that they wanted to see, and they end up getting trapped. And then there's sharks. But then I started the movie, and the virtual effects weren't that good, and this movie's from 2019, so it was like definitely kind of like, okay, like this doesn't look that good, but okay, I'll keep watching. And I'm so glad I did, because yeah, they're stuck in this cave system, but it just goes downhill from there. And there's this whole thing where they have to find the second entrance. And I won't spoil the ending of this one, but I did like this ending a lot more than the first one. This time around, the two girls are sisters, and I had an idea about how the ending was gonna go, because the way they set up this movie, these two girls are new sisters, and they're both similar in age, if not the same age, and they go to high school, and they're like, that's not my sister. No, she's the weird girl, or that's the popular girl. Like, that's not my sister. So I had a feeling this was going to be like a morbid bonding thing for the two of them. And yeah, that happens. They get closer and people die. And they end up finding their dad down there because he is one of the, I don't know if it's called archaeology if you're studying stuff that's underwater, but basically he was studying the temple that was down there and stuff like that. They run into his crew. The whole thing that kind of kicks off them being trapped, I thought was really stupid, because basically they find a fish down there that's blind, but it actually doesn't have eyes because it's just evolved that way in this cave system with no light. But then one of the girls they're with scares the fish, and it like hisses at them, and it just was a weird thing for a fish to do. Like, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Underwater life is weird. There's a lot of weird sea creatures, but I've never seen just like a fish hiss. Like, that doesn't seem like something they could do. So that would look kind of stupid, honestly. But yeah, I thought it was a really fun movie. I would watch it again. And especially now that I know that the beginning doesn't look that great, but it gets better. And you could tell, again, just like when I said with the monkey, they saved their budget for certain virtual effects over other ones. Yeah. I just finished reading Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. Immediate 5-star book. This was so cool. Let me just start by saying that this horror novel, it's also like crossover with historical fiction, and it's a YA book. And I was like blown away when I heard the premise, but one thing to know about me is I love anything with zombies. And this reimagines an alternative history of what would have happened if the Civil War ended, not because of what really happened and the Union beat the Confederacy, but that a zombie apocalypse outbreak happened. Which is just like one of the coolest premises I've ever heard, especially for a zombie book. Our main character Jane has grown up in the after effects of that and has attended a prestigious training academy for Black girls to become ultimately zombie killing machines. But still, like, under the icky racism element of they are going to be bodyguards that are called attendants for the white ladies of society, which, ew. But that just means our main character is super awesome at killing zombies, and she's a lot better than any of the white people. And nobody wants to listen to her. And that is honestly their fatal mistake. This is just book 1. There is a sequel, and before I was done with this, I already put the sequel on hold at the library because this was just so good. Jane is crazy smart and crazy skilled at killing the zombies, which they call shamblers, which is just another fun word for that. But she's also spoiling the plots of evil white supremacy. But yeah, the cover is really dark. I'll probably insert a photo so you can see it better, but... And then there's another character named Catherine who also goes to school with Jane, and I would say they are reluctant allies at first, but then slowly become friends as they kind of beat the odds together and scheme and thwart the plans of the evil, stupid white people. But they make a really awesome team, and I love the visual of just the two of them fighting alongside, because Jane is like all for going into like wearing the shorter skirts and the trousers so she can fight better. But Catherine, on the other hand, is like, the day I can't kill a shambler while wearing a pretty outfit is the day I put down my revolver. So Jane is always like, why are you wearing that corset? Come on, you can't fight as well. And Catherine's like, watch me, I will. So they're just a fun pair to read about. I'd say it's casual queer representation. Jane likes a little bit of everybody, and Catherine is on the ace spectrum where she's like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have a long-time partner. I don't see that with anybody. She just wants to be the best at getting rid of the zombies as she can while looking cute, which I love. But yeah, this was really, really freaking cool, and I can't wait for the sequel to be ready for me to read. And my horror movie that I picked for this week is Sinners. I have seen one scene already because I watched somebody's reaction video to it because I couldn't wait. But that just made me more excited to watch the movie and see this one scene in particular in its entirety. So, hi! I watched Sinners last night with my family. Yeah, we watched a lot of weird movies together, so it wasn't like awkward. But I think this is my favorite movie out of all the horror movies I've picked to watch so far this month. And I knew it was going to be good, and it was just really nice that it lived up to my expectations. like solidly, even like above, because I had heard that this was going to be really good, and I mean, I'd seen the preview, and I'd heard from even people that don't normally like or watch horror movies that this was a good one, and I stand by that. Like, I think this is so good that it has more of a mass appeal, that you don't really have to be into horror as much as I am to be able to enjoy this movie. Obviously, Michael B. Jordan and everybody had absolutely fabulous performances. It was kind of funny seeing him play twins. The writing was so good in the lines. There was just some really funny, snappy, like quick moments in the dialogue. And just overall, the sound was so important to the movie. It was just really cool the way they just set it all up. If you want to watch it, definitely pay attention to like the first few minutes, like the intro, because I know some people just put on the movie, let it play while they're still getting ready to watch it, but you really need to pay attention to like the intro sequence for this one. It describes how people in a lot of different cultures, there's always like one kind of person who's really good at storytelling and music and song, and they have a way of being able to bring the past and the present together with their storytelling abilities, and then that draws evil. So just keep that in mind, because that really sets the tone for the rest of the story. But yeah, 1930s Jim Crow South and vampires, and just honestly really awesome cast. I just finished reading Smalltown Monsters by Diana Rodriguez Wallach. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. So this is like a possession and cult horror book where the cult is what is driving people to be possessed. I was so pleasantly surprised by the whole reading experience. It's very much small town Connecticut coastal vibes, which is fun to read. If you liked the latest Conjuring movie with Judy, where they bring in Ed and Lorraine Warren's daughter into it, I think you would like this book, because our main character, Vera, she has parents that are basically Ed and Lorraine Warren. They help the church and a lot of people in trouble with spiritual, dark energy, demonic things. It was really cool because basically her parents are gone. They are helping somebody up in Spain, and something is happening in her small town, and they're not around, so she takes on helping this boy in her class and his family because his mom is possessed. And like full on really bad. Like, I didn't know if she was going to make it at the end kind of possessed. But it's YA, and it does have a happy ending. So, really enjoyed it, and she also brought in this cult aspect that was really interesting and very creepy. And normally when I've seen or read like possession stories, it's kind of just like an isolated incident where it's like one person or the people that live in like one house kind of thing. But this was like, if you join this cult, you'll eventually be possessed kind of thing. And that was really interesting. I also really liked our two main characters, Vera and Max. Max is the boy that Vera is helping, whose mom is possessed. And they felt like really grounded characters, and just in general, like their characters in this book were really diverse, which is always nice to see, and it felt real. It didn't feel like forced or anything, and so I liked seeing that. This was also her first horror book she'd ever written, and I didn't find that out till after I finished, and I was very surprised to learn that, because I know she has other books that are not horror, but that's what I'm interested in. Her latest horror book just came out last month, and I have yet to read that one. I'm waiting for my library to get it, but I will be reading that as well. And definitely go follow her on TikTok and Instagram. She's always talking about the like publishing drama and like TikTok booktok news, and I really like just seeing her content. So it was fun to like get to read one of her books finally. And I may or may not have already started my next book a little bit early, but don't tell anybody. So this week I was feeling like watching a creepy children's horror movie, and I saw that R.L. Stine has a new adaptation on Tubi for free. So that was a no-brainer. R.L. Stine's Pumpkinhead is adapted from a short story R.L. Stine wrote in the 90s, and honestly, I like everything that guy does. So this movie has the classic R.L. Stine little creepy and a little funny, and gets a good balance for kids of what's actually scary and just some good creepy fun. There is a pumpkin scarecrow-like creature that comes to life, and that had a really cool design. The face was honestly pretty like gross and just the right amount of creepy. And the mouth, I feel like as the movie went on, the mouth just kept getting bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden I noticed like it had teeth on the lower part, and it didn't have that before. So, didn't like that. And then the silly element of there are kids being turned into pumpkins, and that is the ritualistic sacrifice that happens every year to let the town prosper. So, and unfortunately, the parents don't even remember the kids after it happened, so they don't even miss the kids. They don't know what's going on. And the whole like little sequence of the kids turning into the pumpkin was pretty funny. I liked the reveal for this when the main little kid dude steals a pumpkin. Turns out that was the sacrificial pumpkin, and his older brother goes to return it because he's trying to, be an adult because he's 18 in 2 days, so he's got to fix his little brother's problem because his little brother doesn't want to do anything like that. But the older brother goes to put the pumpkin back, and what rolls out of his backpack is a kid's head. It's a head. It's not the pumpkin anymore. So I thought that reveal was pretty fun. And in classic Goosebumps R.L. Stine fashion, it does have a twist end. If you want some new kind of Goosebumps content or a new creepy kids movie to watch that's not too scary, I would definitely recommend this. There was a funny part though too, where the kids were like, it was a really, really long time ago, turn of the century. I think it was 2003. And that made me laugh because I was like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of kids think 2003 was a long time ago. I was alive then, but I was like 4, so it still feels like a long time ago. But I feel like for some older people, that might hurt a little bit. That might hurt the millennials a little bit. Within the movie, there was also a plug for another Tubi original called Slay. Definitely recommend that one. Very funny and campy. Double entendre on slay, as in let's, slay the vampires, but also it's about drag queens who slay. So, a little bonus recommendation there. Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I don't know why I waited so long to read this book. So this was one of my most anticipated reads of 2024. Just didn't get around to it. I found C.G. Drews on Threads of all places, and just really like what they post there, and was super excited to read one of their books. Don't Let the Forest In is the kind of book I wish I could send through the mail back in time to give to my teenage self. It is bloody and gut-wrenching and desperate and obsessive, beautiful and grotesque. It really explores imagination and obsession and the love these two teenage boys have for each other in its twisted nature, even though it is love, while also twisting deeper into their own self-hatred. I am going to be reading this one again and again and again. I was a little bit nervous about reading Don't Let the Forest In. One, because I had hyped it up so much. I didn't want to be disappointed. But then also, there are some similarities to the book I'm writing. And I knew I was going to like this one. I was really scared of the imposter syndrome that this book could have potentially triggered in my brain. But honestly, I have been in a pretty good place with that recently. Obviously, I don't have a book published yet, so there's still imposter syndrome about that. But reading this book had the opposite effect, where it just made me so much more excited for my own story. And I am going to definitely read it again to study it through like a writing lens, because this first time was just about the experience of reading it as like just a reader, not a writer. And it was so deliciously dark and twisted and imaginative, and it really has a similar tone of what I'm trying to make my story like. But the purpleness was part of what I really, really liked about this book. I didn't think it was too much, and I love delicious descriptions, even when they're so gross. It worked. It worked so well. That being said, definitely be aware of body horror as a content warning before you go into this book. Body horror kind of is hit or miss for me. In some cases, I really like it, and that is part of the horror I'm trying to weave into my story. And then there's other ones where it just triggers my anxiety and my OCD really bad, and I can't deal with it. I can't handle it. But I'll say personally, I really enjoyed this kind of body horror. Their book, Hazelthorn, also just came out, so I'm hoping to read that sooner than later. Like, I don't want to wait as long to read that one as I did for this one. So this week, I also watched Deadline, which is the oldest horror movie I picked to watch this month. Coming back to 2009. I was 10. Deadline is also one of the last movies that Brittany Murphy worked on before she passed away, and I think she did a really good job in this movie. Her performance was really good for what she had to work with. I liked the premise of this movie, how a screenwriter decided to, cozy up in a house and just stay there, be kind of isolated, finish her script. And there is some trauma that she is needing to work through. And there is a ghost in this house that just coincidentally went through the exact same thing that Brittany's character did. Which I find that kind of hard to believe, that this ghost died in the exact way that Alice, Brittany's character, almost did. And the exact same circumstances. So that was a little like, okay, what are the chances of that? What are the chances of that? I also noticed really quickly into this movie that there was like almost no dialogue. Like, after I should say the character's name, not the actor. After Alice's friend leaves her at this remote house in the woods, there's like almost no dialogue. Not even like screaming. So it was a little weird. Like, I at least talk to myself once in a while, or make a noise, but it did make, when there was talking, creepier. So at the same time, Alice is trying to work on finishing her script, but also unravel the mystery of what happened to this girl Lucy that used to live there. Some producer guy Alice knows bought this house, and yet he left all of the stuff from the previous couple that reportedly went missing. Why didn't he move any of their stuff? It's just weird. And then, spoiler, the guy isn't dead. So how does he know the producer guy? Is he actually the producer guy? And if he was the producer guy, why doesn't Alice recognize him on the little video recordings? Because I know we go into just the perspective of Lucy and that guy, David, I think. We go into their perspective, so it's not entirely like we're just watching Alice's character watch what happened to them on a little tiny like video recorder from 2009. But it was still just weird in a way that felt plot holy and didn't really make sense or feel justified. I still had a lot of fun. I did like the ghost makeup and effects with that. The ending is weird and more ambiguous than I thought it was. A lot of the dialogue between Alice and her friend that drops her off and she talks to every once in a while she's there, the dialogue between them is vaguely lesbian-ish. Like, am I supposed to think that they're together, but they can't really be together because Alice is afraid her ex is gonna come after her no matter what? Like, if I had a friend who didn't know about my other friends, and then that friend was like, why don't you want your other friends to meet me? Are you ashamed of me? That doesn't feel straight. That doesn't feel straight. If I felt that way and had to ask somebody that, it wouldn't be in a straight way either. And then there's a part where Alice films her in a creepy way and says the same creepy shit that David did to his wife. I didn't like that framing because then it was like, is Alice going to be a perpetrator of some sort? Is she just living out what she's writing? With Don't Let the Forest In, I felt like I had a solid idea of how it ended. Then I looked online at some reviews, and some people were very upset about how it ended ambiguously. And to me, I was like, well, that was ambiguous? I know my version of events. I don't want to think about any other versions. And then with this movie, it was like, wait, what even? It's like they were trying to go for ambiguous, but then they clearly labeled how it went, and then they tried to twist it to be like, you don't actually know, but I don't think it was done well. Before I go, I did enjoy watching this movie, especially the music in it. They included Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, which I love, and it was cool seeing that in a creepy context. I'm filming in my car again because this is the only time and space I have to talk about this, but I wanted to say thank you for watching the video. I had a lot of fun doing this challenge. I think next year I will try to theme the different weeks with different horror topics or like subgenres, because a couple of them kind of worked out that way this year, just randomly, and I think that would be fun to try, so maybe I'll do that next year.